The blazing Texas sun stretched over roads paved as smooth as silk, reflecting rows of pristine white mansions that lay silent beneath towering palm trees. The River Oaks Estates neighborhood was famous for its Italian Renaissance-style houses, gardens trimmed to perfection down to the last millimeter, and a notoriously strict homeowners association, HOA. It was the kind of place where the ostentatious wealthy sought a paradise of order. But to Jessica Miller, it felt more like a luxurious prison. She had moved here 2 weeks earlier, after her divorce and the sale of her Manhattan apartment. At 32, Jessica craved a fresh start. No late-night arguments, no wafts of cigarette smoke invading from the neighbors, and above all, no more having to see the face of the man who had betrayed her. She bought a small white villa by the lake with her lifetime savings, convinced she had found a peaceful haven to resume writing her unfinished detective novel. But she was mistaken. On the first Saturday morning, as Jessica lounged in her gray bathrobe, clutching a self-made cappuccino, a deep rumble from a dazzling black Mercedes-Benz S-Class shattered the calm. The car parked haphazardly right in the middle of her driveway, its front tires even trampling the shabby lawn. Out stepped a short-haired blonde woman dressed in an immaculate white Chanel suit, her heart-shaped sunglasses concealing nearly all of her sharp features. "Good morning. I'm Karen Whitlock, HOA president," the woman announced, her voice grating like fingernails on a chalkboard. "You're Jessica Miller, aren't you? I need to inspect the fence at the back of your house. Someone reported that it's encroaching on public parkland." Jessica swallowed hard and forced a smile. "I just moved in. I'm sure there's been some mistake?" Karen removed her sunglasses, her icy blue eyes sweeping over every detail of Jessica's face. "There's no mistake here, only regulations. You have 48 hours to fix it. And by the way, your trash bin is in the wrong spot. Consider this a first warning. Next time, it's a $200 fine." Before Jessica could even react, Karen turned on her heel and strode into the house without waiting for an invitation. Using the HOA's master key, she opened the gate and sauntered through every corner of the garden like a tax auditor. Jessica stood frozen, her hand clutching the now cold cup of coffee. From that day on, the black Mercedes became an obsession. Every morning, Karen parked in front of Jessica's driveway under the pretense of inspecting for violations. Sometimes it was about the faded paint on the fence. Other times she accused Jessica of leaving her outdoor lights on past 10 p.m. Each time Jessica objected, Karen would offer a thin smile and remark, "You just don't understand. We must maintain standards for the entire neighborhood." Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, Jessica discovered tire tracks stamped on her newly planted lawn. Enraged, she called Karen. "Please, do not park on my lawn anymore." "Oh, Ms. Miller," Karen replied mockingly, "you should mind your own business. I heard that the oak trees in front of your house are over 2 meters taller than the regulation. If they're not trimmed, you'll be fined $500 next week." Staring in disbelief at the 3 young oak saplings barely reaching 1.8 meters, Jessica realized this was nothing more than a threat. Every complaint she sent to the HOA was ignored, and the neighbors avoided her whenever she mentioned Karen, as if that name were the Voldemort of River Oaks. That night, Jessica tossed and turned. The wind whistling through the gap in her second-floor bedroom window sounded like a long sigh. She turned over, eyes fixed on the digital clock blinking 2:47 a.m., when a brief flash of light flared and then vanished into the darkness. Her heart pounding, Jessica crept out of bed and pressed herself against the wall. Through a gap in the curtains, a phone was thrust into view, its camera lens aimed directly into her room. The camera's light flashed again, revealing the silhouette of a wide-brimmed hat beneath an oak tree. "Get out of here right now," Jessica shouted, yanking the curtains aside. The figure jerked and quickly turned. Moonlight broke through the clouds, illuminating Karen's pallid face. The black Mercedes roared to life and sped away into the night like a monster. The next morning, Jessica found a black envelope clipped to her gate. Inside was a photo of her changing clothes through a foggy window, alongside bold red words, "Next time, close your curtains properly. Your safety is our priority." With trembling hands, Jessica looked out onto the driveway. Oil stains from the Mercedes bled across the pavement like blood. She knew she had just provoked a hornet's nest, but the fear had given way to fury. Hidden in her jacket pocket, her fingers gripped a USB drive containing the security footage she'd just downloaded from her bedroom camera. "All right, Karen," she whispered, eyes fixed on the provocative photo. "The game has only just begun." After that night of Karen's covert surveillance, Jessica decided to transform her home into a fortress. She spent the entire Saturday installing security cameras, a small one hidden among the rose bushes facing the driveway, another mounted under the eave overlooking her bedroom, and two more cleverly disguised as decorative garden lights. Her phone was always on the surveillance app, its screen split into 4 black and white squares like an ever-watchful, sleepless eye. Karen did not disappoint. On Monday morning, the black Mercedes appeared once more. This time, Karen deliberately parked partly on Jessica's property, with her rear wheels pressing onto the tender grass. The camera captured her stepping out, glancing at the lens, and smirking as if daring Jessica. Seething silently, Jessica saved the clip as Violation 1. By the end of the weekend, her computer folder contained 15 videos, each clip timestamped. Karen illegally parking, Karen trimming Jessica's hedges, Karen using the master key to open the gate without permission. Jessica printed a thick file labeled Evidence of Violations by the HOA president and sent it to the board's mailbox. 3 days passed without a word. Determined, Jessica decided to go in person to the HOA headquarters, a gleaming glass building at the end of the main road. The meeting room was carpeted in a deep red, as if stained with blood, and adorned with portraits of past presidents. At the head of the table sat Karen, twirling a golden Mont Blanc pen. "I've reviewed your file," Karen interrupted as soon as Jessica began to speak. "But unfortunately, your cameras are installed in the wrong locations according to Clause 12.7 of the HOA regulations. You have 24 hours to remove them, or each camera will incur a $1,000 fine." Jessica trembled with anger. "This is my property. You can't." "Your property?" Karen stood up, her frail figure casting a long shadow on the wall. "In River Oaks, everything belongs to the HOA. The brown-tinted windows you installed violate our standards, and your garden isn't even on the approved list of plants. Did you really think that buying a house made you the owner?" A stifled chuckle erupted from the board members. That's when Jessica realized they were all Karen's lackeys. An old, wrinkled man once accused of sexual harassment in 2015. A stoic housewife resembling a wax figure who routinely fined children for playing soccer, and a middle-aged man who always wore sunglasses indoors. That night, Jessica sat curled up in her study, her eyes fixed on the security camera monitor. Suddenly, a knock echoed at the door. When she opened it, she found her elderly neighbor Maria, a Mexican woman who had smiled at her a few times, standing there, shivering in the rain. "Come in. It's freezing out there," Jessica urged, pulling her inside. Maria glanced out at the street before murmuring, "You need to get out of here. Karen did that to my family once." Maria's story made Jessica's blood run cold. Last year, Maria's son, Javier, had discovered that Karen was embezzling funds from the landscaping maintenance budget. 2 weeks later, the police raided their home and found drugs in the garbage truck. Maria's family was deported to Mexico without even being tried. "They control everything," Maria sobbed. "The police chief is Karen's brother-in-law, and the judge is one of her husband's drinking buddies." After Maria left, Jessica began searching for more information about the case. A local news website had posted a brief article titled, "Immigrant Family Arrested for Possessing Contraband," but it contained neither photos nor any concrete evidence. The next morning, while Karen was in a meeting, Jessica sneaked into the HOA office. Pretending to be a cleaning staff member, she rifled through the financial records. The numbers left her stunned. $50,000 spent on tree trimming, when there were only a few withering bushes, and $200,000 on pipe repairs, despite never having seen a repairman. Suddenly, the sound of high heels echoed down the hallway. Jessica quickly snapped photos of some documents and hid inside a wardrobe. Peeking through a gap, she saw Karen opening a safe and pulling out a thick wad of cash, stuffing it into a Louis Vuitton bag. "This month, we're taking an extra 10%, Karen said into her phone. "The county police need a slush fund for their new case." Late that night, as Jessica reviewed the video footage, her phone rang. An unknown number appeared, and a message flashed on the screen. "Don't trust what Karen says. That Mercedes once belonged to Megan Ellis, the girl who went missing in August 2022. Look for the necklace in the car." Jessica's heart pounded erratically. She rewound the clip of Karen parking and zoomed in on the back seat. There, wedged under the seat cushion, glittered a gold necklace engraved with ME, exactly like the one in the threatening photo. Suddenly, the gate camera's alarm blared. Jessica looked at the screen. The black Mercedes was parked across her driveway, its headlights blazing. Karen stepped out, clutching a small hammer. "Jessica, open the door," Karen's voice squeaked through the intercom. "We need to talk about that pile of trash you just rifled through." Jessica yanked the phone's charger out of the outlet and, trembling, grabbed her kitchen knife. She watched from behind the curtains as Karen's silhouette circled the house, the sound of her hammer striking each window frame. "You're crazy," Jessica gasped, peeking through the gap. Stopping in front of the camera with a sinister smirk, Karen held up the invoice that Jessica had secretly photographed earlier that day, then smashed the lens with her hammer. The camera screen went black. The next morning, Jessica received a $5,000 fine for damaging common property, after the HOA cameras recorded her entering the office without permission. But now she was no longer afraid. In her hands were copies of financial records riddled with discrepancies, videos of Karen accepting bribes, and that mysterious message about Megan Ellis. Logging into an anonymous neighborhood forum, she created an account under the name River Oaks _whistleblower. Her first post was titled "The Bloodstained Secret Behind the Black Mercedes S-Class," and included the photo of the necklace along with the clip of Karen smashing the camera. In less than 10 minutes, the post had been shared 50 times. Then, her phone rang, a call from an unknown number. Jessica answered, and all she heard was heavy breathing followed by a cold, icy male voice. "Stop before you lose your life." The line went dead abruptly. Jessica looked out the window. The black Mercedes had vanished, but on the doorstep a fresh trail of blood was slowly spreading under the sunlight. The wall clock in the kitchen read 3:15 p.m. when Jessica picked up her phone again. Her finger scrolled through her contacts until it stopped at the number of a towing company she had saved the previous week. With a deep sigh, she murmured, "It's time." Her eyes never leaving the black Mercedes parked across her driveway, as if it were challenging her. The man on the other end, hearing the tremor in her voice, asked, "Final confirmation. Are you sure that vehicle is parked illegally? If not, we won't be held responsible." "Absolutely," Jessica replied, clutching a printed copy of Texas traffic law, Section 28.03 on property rights. "It's parked on my property. I've warned the owner 15 times. 10 minutes later, the sound of a tow truck siren echoed from down the road. Jessica stood behind her curtains, her heart pounding. 2 tow truck operators clad in bright orange safety gear stepped out, snapping photos of the Mercedes from every angle. One of them bent down to inspect the license plate, muttering, "A luxury car like this, and it's getting towed?" Jessica activated her security camera app and recorded the entire process. The Mercedes was hoisted up, its rear wheels still slowly turning as if in futile resistance. For the first time in weeks, a smile crept across her face. Meanwhile, in the dim HOA meeting room, Karen sat tapping her fingers on an ebony table as she discussed a new security fee. Her phone rang, displaying a notification from the vehicle tracking app. "Your vehicle is being moved." "What the hell is this?" Karen shouted, her face flushed red. She abruptly stood up, sending her chair crashing to the floor. "I have to leave immediately. Whoever dared to mess with my car." Karen's Lexus sped through streets littered with oak leaves. She floored the accelerator, her windshield now crisscrossed with a spiderweb crack from last night's camera-smashing incident. When she arrived, the Mercedes had vanished, leaving behind a sprawling oil stain on the asphalt. Back at her home, Jessica stood behind the bulletproof glass, trembling as she recorded Karen furiously kicking the mailbox and ripping the doorbell off. "Open up, bitch. You think you can beat me?" she shouted. Karen pulled a small hammer from her Hermes handbag and smashed the stone angel statue on the porch. Shards flew everywhere like scattered white bones. "I'll drive you insane. No one will ever believe you," she screamed. That night, Jessica, clutching her kitchen knife, dozed off on the sofa. But the sound of the bathroom window shattering jolted her awake. In the pale moonlight, Karen's ghostly figure advanced, clutching a blood-stained hammer. "You idiot! You think installing cameras everywhere makes you safe?" Karen growled as she smashed the curved TV. "My electrical system. I control everything." Retreating to the corner of the kitchen, Jessica, hands still trembling, launched her backup camera app. On the screen, she saw images of Karen tearing up her novel manuscripts. Red ink splattered on the wall, forming the words, "Geo, ask Megan Ellis. Do you know where Megan is?" Jessica shouted, desperately trying to back away from the swinging hammer. Karen let out a rasping laugh, her eyes bloodshot. "She's right under the oak tree at your place. Every day you crush her corpse." Jessica's untouched dinner was thrown about as Karen swept her hand dismissively, plates and dishes clattering underfoot. Then, Karen shoved a jeweled dagger, its blade streaked with dried blood, into Jessica's hand. "Hold on to it, and remember, next time it'll be your heart," she hissed. 5:03 a.m. Karen had long since left, leaving the house looking like a battlefield. Jessica trudged into the kitchen, leaning on the grimy counter. She opened a drawer in search of a sedative bottle, and was startled to find a plastic bag containing a white powder hidden under a stack of invoices. She brought it to her nose and inhaled its strange, sweet scent. "Damn it! They're growing drugs in my house." As if suddenly reminded, she pulled out her phone to review the hidden camera in the refrigerator, the only device left behind. The black and white footage showed Karen nonchalantly tucking the plastic bag into a drawer at 4:17 a.m., a sneering smile on her lips. Jessica stood frozen. The front door suddenly banged open, and the sound of police sirens blared outside. "Police! Open up!" Behind two burly officers, Karen stood with a pale face feigning concern. "I heard screaming coming from her house. Jessica seems off." As the door swung open, Karen pointed at the bag of drugs clutched in Jessica's hand. "Oh my God! She's got contraband!" The police chief, a man sporting a tattoo of a cobra coiled around his neck, stepped forward. "Ms. Miller, we need to conduct a search." Jessica raised her phone and played the video of Karen cultivating drugs. "This is evidence. It's her." Before she could finish, an officer glanced at Karen, then suddenly snatched the phone and hurled it to the floor. The screen shattered. "You just destroyed evidence," he said coldly, "and assaulted an officer." Karen began sobbing uncontrollably as she clung to the officer. "Please help me. She threatened to kill me all night." Her left hand slowly opened, revealing a sparkling diamond ring that had been slipped into the officer's jacket pocket. As the police escorted Jessica into the truck, she caught sight of Karen standing beneath an oak tree, holding a small shovel. The look in her eyes seemed to say, "You've lost." But Jessica smiled. Before her arrest, she had activated the auto-upload feature to send the video to the cloud. In the police chief's jacket pocket, the shattered phone suddenly vibrated. A message from the security app. 15 clips have been sent to New York Times reporters. That night, as Karen dug under the oak tree in search of Megan's body, she had no idea that a camera hidden in a bird's nest was recording every moment. And at the police station, Jessica whispered to the recording clerk, "I'm reporting the HOA for murder and drug trafficking. And here are the names of the victims: Megan Ellis, Javier Rodriguez." The smell of floor cleaner, sweat, and fear mingled in the police station. Jessica sat curled up in the interrogation room, clutching the USB drive hanging around her neck like a crucifix. Chief Tanner, the very man who had accepted bribes from Karen, tossed a thick stack of files onto the table. "You have 5 minutes to confess." "I'm innocent," Jessica said, shoving the USB toward him, her eyes unblinking. This contains video of Karen breaking into my house, cultivating drugs, and threatening to kill. It even has a recording of her admitting to killing Megan Ellis. Tanner smirked as he plugged the USB into the computer. The screen displayed footage of Karen holding a knife and threatening Jessica in a sneering tone. "You'll die just like little Megan did last year. Her rotting corpse is under the oak tree by your house." The room fell silent. Tanner broke into a cold sweat, his hand trembling as he grasped his phone. Jessica leaned forward. "Don't call Karen. This clip has automatically been sent to 10 major newsrooms. And it even shows her bribing you." At 3 a.m., a special FBI team stormed the parking garage. The dusty black Mercedes lay overturned, its undercarriage revealing streaks of dark brown under the flashlight beams. A technician swept the area with an ultraviolet light. The entire undercarriage glowed like a starry sky, with blood spatters forming the shape of a contorted figure. The DNA matches Megan Ellis, the lead investigator's side. The 22-year-old girl who went missing after accusing Karen of smuggling across the Mexican border. "We found her diary in a secret compartment under the car seat." Jessica flipped through the diary pages, the ink smudged by her tears. "August 15th, Karen threatened to bury me under the oak tree if I continued investigating. I must find evidence of the $5 million in the Cayman account." A crowd gathered outside the district court as Karen was dragged out of a pickup truck. Her once pristine white suit was now rumpled, her blonde hair disheveled, yet her eyes remained as cold as blades. She screamed when she saw Jessica, "You crazy. You have no idea you've just opened Pandora's box." The jury gasped as the prosecutor presented the evidence. 127 videos of Karen accepting bribes, Megan Ellis's corpse exhumed from beneath the oak tree with the Emmy necklace still around her neck, and a list of 12 missing persons connected to the HOA. Karen slumped over the table as she was sentenced to life without parole. But before being led away, she turned to look at Jessica, a sneer on her lips. "They will come for you. They always win." That night, Jessica returned to her house, a place now scarred by chaos. On the dining table lay a loosely placed black envelope with gold trim. Inside was a gleaming, smooth leather note, the words scrawled in vivid red as if written in blood. "Dear Jessica Miller, thank you for cleaning up the mess. But don't be naive, don't think you're safe. This house, this neighborhood, and even the secrets buried underground all belong to the true council. Welcome to hell." The letter was signed with a strange symbol, a ring of fire encircling an oak tree, its roots entwined with 13 skulls. Jessica tossed the letter aside and dashed to the window. The blood coursing through her veins seemed to freeze. 10 jet-black SUVs lined up in a row, completely blocking the driveway. Their headlights turned on in unison, revealing dozens of figures dressed in black cloaks standing motionless like statues. The lead figure raised his right hand, the ring engraved with an oak tree, stained with blood, gleaming ominously. "This is not the end," Jessica murmured, slowly retreating into the shadows. In her study, the computer automatically booted up to display satellite images. The entire River Oaks estates formed the shape of a gigantic oak tree, with her house positioned right at its roots. A knock echoed on the door in a steady rhythm. 333. Clutching the dagger Karen had left behind, Jessica slowly opened the door. 12 individuals in black suits bowed in greeting. The leader, whose face was eerily reminiscent of Karen, smiled. "Welcome, new member of the council. Either join us or become fertilizer for the oak tree." In his hand was a blood-stained contract, the final line reading, "Jessica Miller agrees to serve as the 13th chairman of the HOA." She glanced at the pristine black Mercedes parked behind them, its undercarriage still caked with fresh dirt. In that moment, as she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror with her dyed blonde hair, crimson lips, and eyes as cold as Karen's, Jessica realized something profound.